Okay, everybody, it is E. Marcel Pertu. Welcome to another edition of the Fighting Peaches, where we recap all things college football in the state of Georgia and the Sun Belt Conference, ACC, SEC. We touch on all of it on our broadcast. And we're recording this on September 28th, 2021. As always, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership, the sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. Do a search on there for us. Look for the Sports Inquirer, follow us there, and you'll be able to keep track of everything that we have going on. Yeah, so it's an active week in college athletics as far as the football field goes in the state of Georgia. We'll start with Georgia State. Tough loss at Auburn on last Saturday. 23rd ranked Auburn. Georgia led for most of the contest, but Auburn was able to get a go-ahead touchdown on a fourth down play with 45 seconds left to go, and went on to win the contest 34-24 at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Alabama. Before we get to the specifics, here is head coach of the Georgia State Panthers, Shawn Elliott, on the loss.
It's amazing that it comes down to a fourth down play. Get amazing pressure on that quarterback, lose contain on the backside right there, and he delivers the game-winning touchdown with 30 seconds left to go. I couldn't be more proud of our football team. You know, I told them in there, I said, you know, the wins for me are about them. The wins are about seeing those kids' faces and because of what they do. I don't do a whole lot. You know, tonight I was disappointed to walk in there and see a team that had given everything they had and came up on the short end. It's a disappointing feeling. You know, sports can rip you apart, and that was a tough one to lose tonight.
Yeah, and Georgia State controlled the contest throughout. They had a lead or took a lead early in the second quarter and was holding on to a 24-19 lead with 3:23 left to go in the contest before Auburn took the ball over at the 2-yard line. Auburn was able to move the ball down the field, and Georgia State actually forced a 4th and 9 at the Georgia State 10. But quarterback T.J. Finley for Auburn, who replaced Bo Nix, was able to scramble on the play and found Cedric Jackson in the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown. And that was the only offensive touchdown that Auburn managed against the Georgia State defense. Georgia State got the ball back with a handful of seconds left. Unfortunately for Georgia State, Darren Granger threw a pick six, and that was the final score of the contest, and Auburn was able to earn the victory. But here is Shawn Elliott on that final drive for Auburn and what happened there.
Well, I mean, they certainly put it in the end zone and made plays to take that drive down there and go. They had a little bit of help on that review where the ball was incomplete. Should have been put back on the 30-yard line. But you know, when you play in the SEC, you gotta take the hits, you know. And they gave us a real good punch on that call, so we appreciate that. But you know, we were doing our very, very best. Our players were playing hard. And they were doing everything they could. They were busting their tails. They've been out there on that field. It seemed like forever in the second half because we couldn't generate anything offensively going. And they laid it on the line. I'm proud of those guys. I'm really proud of those guys. It's amazing to watch guys go out there and, you know, you see them work in practice. You see them, you know, do everything that they can do in the weight room and in the classroom. And you ask so much of them, and man, you want them to come out on top on every single play. I mean, that's ultimately what's it about, seeing their face when they're successful and when they win. And I mean, that's the most gratifying thing in the world. And it didn't happen on that last drive. And it hurts. It hurts. I hurt for them. I hurt for them because they put so much energy and effort into it.
Yeah, and as he mentioned, Auburn got a big break on a completed pass by Finley in that series that really should have been an incomplete pass. You look at the replay; the ball will hit the ground during the catch attempt, but the call it stood as a catch, extended Auburn's drive, and ultimately Auburn was able to get the score in that drive. So yeah, disappointing result for Georgia State. There were some highlights. Tucker Gray rushed for a career high 150 yards, including a 5-yard TD run for Georgia State in the contest. Quarterback Darren Granger, as I mentioned earlier, he did throw the pick six at the very end of the contest, but he did throw for 117 yards and had 2 touchdowns in the contest. Jordan Vizeli had an outstanding performance on a defensive end for Georgia State with 7 tackles. He had a sack. He recovered a fumble. So those are some positives from Georgia State in the contest. And here is Elliott on the team's defense.
Our entire defense played one hell of a game. I mean, our defensive line, our linebackers, our secondary, the entire defense, without a doubt. I mean, they're the players of the game. Time and time again, stop after stop after stop. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They controlled the passing attack. I mean, it was great to watch. God, what a great defensive performance. I love just standing over there and seeing, the opposing offense struggle to do things that they normally can do. They got a great running attack. They got one of the best backs, they say, in the country. And it was minimal amount of yards rushing for us, and we held them all in check. I'm very proud of them. They do a great job. We play a lot of guys. There's no one guy that makes the plays. It's a revolving door on that defensive front. And tonight it was kind of the same in the linebacker position. I'm really proud of them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and Georgia State from the very beginning of the contest, as I said, had control of it. They got on the board first in the contest by a 32-yard field goal midway through the first quarter by Noel Reese, the second consecutive field goal conversion of the season, and that was powered by Greg's career-long 57-yard rushing attempt. Auburn did manage a set of field goals in their subsequent possessions, but Georgia State was able to take the lead later on early in the second quarter. Actually, Granger directed a 16-play, 75-yard drive that was capped off by a 12-yard TD pass to Jamari Thrash, and that put Georgia State up 10-6 early in the second quarter. Auburn got another field goal that cut the lead to 10-9, but Georgia State had another long drive, this time for 75 yards, and it only took 5 plays for the touchdown, which was a 24-yard pass to there were 2 big passes by Granger to Roger Carter. There was a 24-yard pass completion earlier on in the drive, and then on the play that ultimately was the touchdown, Granger was able to find Carter in the end zone for a 7-yard TD pass, and that was the 11th career TD catch for Carter, who surpassed Keith Rucker for the most ever by a Georgia State tight end, and that made the score 17-9 in favor of Georgia State with about 7 minutes left in the second quarter. And Georgia State once again held Auburn to a field goal, and the Georgia State was able to take a 24-12 lead in the contest on Greg's 50-yard TD rush in the second quarter to make the score so 24-12 heading into halftime. Greg rushed for 142 yards in the first half, which is the most rushing yards that Auburn has allowed to any running back in the first half since Leonard Fournette had 169 yards in the first half in 2015, and the most ever by a visiting opponent against Auburn since 2002. So that was they had good control of the contest throughout, but in the second half, Georgia State did not score a single point. So they just had some struggles there. And here is Coach Elliott on those second half struggles.
I don't know if it was anything they were doing. I told them in the locker room, I said, we're fixing to face their best shot, without a doubt. They had to play better inside against us in the second half because they controlled the running game for the most part inside in the second half. And we have some perimeter runs that weren't blocked very well in the perimeter that got us in long yardage situations on second down. In that first half, we were ahead of the game and we were ahead of the chains. And when you're ahead of the chains, it's easy. It's an easy game to call offensively. But we never got ahead of the chains. It was always first or second and 13 or second and 11, and just never got ahead of the chains. And you thought we could have, the way we had handled their front in the first half. I thought we were going to have success. I thought we could continue. I knew we weren't going to have as much success as we did in the first half, but I thought we could have controlled it enough to get some points on the board. And it's unfortunate that we did not.
Yeah, so Georgia State moves on. Tough loss once again. Tough loss for them. They conclude the non-conference slate of their regular season 1-3. Next up for the Panthers is Appalachian State. Speaking of Appalachian State, they were able to erase a 9-point fourth quarter deficit to earn a 31-30 victory over Marshall. Running backs Cameron Peebles and Nate Noel combined for 265 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground for Appalachian State in that victory. Louisiana won its Sun Belt Conference opener over Georgia Southern, 28-20. Levi Lewis had 249 passing yards and 3 TDs to give the Raging Cajuns the victory. Running back Gerald Green had 186 rushing yards and 3 TDs for the Eagles in defeat. And Georgia Southern fired head coach Chad Lunsford after that contest. I have not been able to get any inside information on the story of why he was dismissed, but he had multiple bowl appearances for the team. I know they started off this season not on the best foot. That was their third loss of the season in a row. But same thing I said with Helton at USC, Southern California. If you're don't have confidence in the coach, you're gonna fire him in the middle of the season. Why did you bring him back to coach your team in the very beginning of the year? That loss against Louisiana, especially, it was only 8 points. I know it was the conference opener for both teams, but you're gonna fire the guy from Louisiana, a team that I think is the favorite to win the Sun Belt West, the division, and you lose that contest and you fire him. And I know he's going to get his compensation and everything like that. Firing's a part of the business, but I don't see the direction that Georgia Southern is really trying to go with that move. They're a good program. I know they had a tremendous run at the FCS level or 1AA when Georgia Southern was down there, won multiple national championships. I know had Eric Russell. He had a tremendous run there. Paul Johnson did some good things there as well back in the 80s and the 90s, even into the 2000s. But it's a different landscape. It's a different era. And I just don't see why the firing was done in the middle of the season. I'll have more on that when we do our preview of the upcoming week of action in the Sun Belt on a future episode. But I just wanted to get my thoughts out on that. Let's see, what else was in the Sun Belt? Louisiana Monroe, a team that went winless last year, remember, they were able to defeat Troy 29-16. So Louisiana Monroe is now 1-0 in Sun Belt play. The Warhawks have won consecutive games for the first time since 2018. As I said, remember, they went winless last year. Coach Bowden is doing a tremendous job there of rebuilding that Monroe program. They got some big plays in that contest, highlighted by Jaquez Williams' interception for return 96 yards for a touchdown. That cemented the victory for the Warhawks. That was the second longest play in Louisiana Monroe history. So that was a big play for the Warhawks to earn that victory. Coastal Carolina was able to defeat UMass 53-3 in their contest. 558 total yards of offense for the Chanticleers. That was the big reason for the victory. Also, the Chanticleers defense allowed just 28 rushing yards in that contest. Fewest yards they've allowed on the ground since becoming a full-time FBS member in 2017. So now the Chanticleers are 4-0 on the season for the fifth time in program history. The last time it happened, last year, when they started the season with a unblemished run through 4 contests. So that was a good effort by the Chanticleers as they roll along. Let's see, Arkansas State lost their contest at Tulsa, 41-34. Big special teams plays for the Wolves. 63-yard punt return by Johnny Lang for a touchdown, and then Alan Lamar returned a kickoff 93 yards for a score, but that was not enough to secure the victory for Arkansas State. Texas State fell at Eastern Michigan, 59-21 in the first meeting between those two teams. So the Bobcats are progressing along in their season. Just some quick notes around the rest of the state of Georgia. I mentioned Georgia State and Georgia Southern, and their issues and their dismissal of their coach. Georgia beat Vanderbilt by a lot to a little. And I'm a Vanderbilt Commodore for life. I'm an alum of the school. But going into that contest, Coach Leah at Vanderbilt, he has a big rebuilding project, and that was put to light in a major way in that contest. So that's something but for Georgia, something for Vanderbilt to really figure out and try to work on. But for Georgia, you got everything accomplished. You played some pretty intense games the first few weeks of the season, and you ended up with, I don't want to say a practice or a scrimmage, but it was almost like that. I mean, it was 35-0 at the end of the first quarter. I mean, from there, it's like that was just a cakewalk for them. So they have Arkansas coming up this weekend at home, battle of top 10 teams. Be very interesting to see what the Bulldogs will do against the Razorbacks. Georgia Tech, very good win against North Carolina at MBS Stadium. They played their first game in a 5 or 6 year series of matches at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the Atlanta Falcons of the NFL, and Atlanta United of Major League Soccer. But you saw Jeff Sims get in there. He's the quarterback. He should be our starting quarterback. I think that when he hurt his shoulder against the quarterback for Georgia Tech, hurt his shoulder against Northern Illinois in that opener, and the offense wasn't effective even when he was in there. Then you throw Jordan Yates in there. He gave him some solid contributions. I know even last week they lost that contest, and then to beat Kennesaw State at home in their second game, that was almost like a scrimmage for them. And then the third game, losing at Clemson, a very close contest last week. And Jordan Yates played in that contest, played pretty well. But against North Carolina, they just were offensively, they were not flowing and not starting off well. But then Sims gets in there. They get 4 total touchdowns in the contest, and they put a number on North Carolina. So I think Sims is the guy that you want to be at the quarterback one to start. But that was a very big moment for the Georgia Tech program. First win over a ranked opponent in the head coach Geoff Collins era. So that was a very important win for him and what he's trying to do at Georgia Tech. They face Pittsburgh this upcoming week. So that'll be a very interesting game. Don't want to make it a trap game as far as thinking too far ahead of things. But that'll be very interesting to check out. And that concludes our recap of college athletics, or at least football, in the state of Georgia. As always, go to Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the Sports Inquirer. Subscribe to our YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes pages under the Sports Inquirer. And then finally, go to the mothership at sportsinquirer.net for all the news and notes you'll need in the world of sports. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.